Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is not only one of the best sequels I've ever played, but it's also one of my favourite gaming experiences I've had since, well, I can't really remember. See, special games come around every so often. The likes of Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, or Elden Ring are experiences I will never ever forget. And they're the games that stand the test of time, and the further you go on, the fonder your memories grow. Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was kind of one of them games, despite its flaws. By that, I mean you could see Warhorse's vision. But they were a smaller team with a lesser budget, and it was their first game, so they were establishing production pipelines. And things like that, while necessary, can bog down development. But now they've been given the keys to the kingdom, and it shows. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is massive. And that isn't always better, but it is here. Warhorse is now a bigger, more experienced team with a larger budget, and what they have to show for it is nothing short of amazing. Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is the Warhorse as The Witcher 1 and 2 are the CD Projekt Red. They're great foundations with a clear vision that, if built upon, could create one of the most beloved RPGs of all time. And after around 50 hours with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I can safely say that this is their Witcher 3 moment. The vision is clearer because of the refinements to everything from combat, writing, quest design and more. And on top of all of that, it has a cinematic flair that the likes of Starfield and other first-person RPGs are missing nowadays. So in this review, I want to have a clear goal. I want to explain to you why everything feels better. Why the writing is more impactful, why the combat feels more engaging, why the world feels more alive, and why it's one of the greatest sequels I have ever played. I also want to talk about who this game is for. If you like the original Kingdom Come Deliverance, then you will love this game. But what about the people who didn't like the first? Or people who have never played the first one? Can they just jump in here? So, if you're new here, welcome to the channel that covers games in a normal way for normal, level-headed people, and if that sounds good to you, then please subscribe. I would love to have you on the channel.
Ordentes fortuna juvat!
If you don't know, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a realistic Skyrim. You have to maintain your gear like most RPGs, and you also have to maintain Henry. You have to eat or your stamina will suffer, you have to sleep off injuries, and you have to bathe and wash your clothes or people will treat you differently and call you smelly. It's set in early 1400s Bohemia where there's an ongoing strife between King Wenceslas and his brother, and it's a direct continuation from the first game. In that game, Henry is a blacksmith's son who eventually gets enlisted in the army to fight against Sigismund's invading forces. At the start of the first game, Henry is useless. He can't sneak to save his life, he barely knows how to wield a sword, and since he's just a blacksmith's son, he doesn't know how to read or write. And while the first game doesn't have the greatest character moments or overall story, the feeling of taking Henry from a guy who could barely hold his own in a fistfight to a fairly competent warrior and scholar was amazing. It felt like true progression in a game most other RPGs can't match. And I was curious as to how Warhorse would continue this growth, but also where they would start Henry in the second game, because it takes place only a couple of days after the first one. This is where I initially fell in love with KCD2. Most sequels don't feel like sequels. Yeah, the characters might have grown as a person through whatever trials they went through in the first game, but by and large, the characters feel the same. Just in recent years, take Spider-Man 2 or God of War Ragnarok. Yes, Peter, Miles and Kratos have grown as people, but it's not exactly reflected through the gameplay in a mechanical sense. Kratos still starts Ragnarok relatively underpowered, same with Peter and Miles. But in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you can feel that Henry is more competent in every single aspect of his life. He can duel with seasoned warriors, he can talk his way out of a lot of situations, he can even brew potions or maintain his gear better. And I instantly noticed this difference when I started combat. I just played Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 before 2, and there was an early quest in that game to take out a bandit camp, and I tried and tried and tried my hardest to beat it, but I couldn't. I wasn't strong enough, and I had to wait till I was at least 10 or 15 hours in the game to take out the camp. Now in the sequel, I never really struggled with one or two people at a time, and what I love most about the improvements in character progression and mechanics is how it makes me feel like I've grown with Henry. Not only because his actual stats and skills have gone up, but also my mechanical skill increased. In the first game, you could hit in 5 directions and a stab, whereas here you can only hit in 4 directions. So if your enemy has a shield in their left hand, then you probably don't want to hit them there. Instead, you can feint an attack and then quickly switch direction to catch them off guard. And even in the first game, it fixed the biggest flaw I've had with first-person melee combat. You're no longer just slashing away with reckless abandon. Instead, you're carefully watching your enemies' movements, reading their attacks, and trying to react. The combat is significantly smoother for a lot of reasons. Firstly, you dodge with circle instead of the weird flick the analog stick when the enemy's about to attack from the first game, and it just feels so much better. Your hits feel way more impactful, and also the delay between button presses and strikes is a lot faster, so overall it just feels more responsive. And all of this is matched with my mechanical skill. I understood how to do feint attacks and how to properly do a master strike, which, if you didn't know, is a technique where you counter your enemy's attack, and it's the most overpowered thing in the game. So Henry is a more competent warrior through his skills, stats, and gear, but also the little refinements in how the combat feels just less clunky and less finicky just makes you feel like a way better swordsman. Now that is all well and good, and the combat is much improved, but that sort of new feeling eventually wore away because I figured out how to exploit the enemy AI because it actually isn't great in combat. So my Henry was a swordsman, and I didn't use any other weapons because I just prefer swords. So I eventually figured out that every enemy will hold their weapon in one direction, and then they'll swap direction quickly, which means I had a few seconds to set up the Master Strike, and it meant that I could almost always beat any number of enemies with just Master Strike, so that is something that I hope they fix in the future. My biggest issue with the combat in the first game was the ranged combat. For every other skill, there was a noticeable difference between Henry at the start and at the end of the game. But it wasn't the same for ranged combat. Bows were just as hard to use when I finished the game. Just like everything else, Henry actually is an okay marksman at the start of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And it feels like I can actually hit things I'm trying to aim at. And they added crossbows and pistols, and crossbows take ages to load but pack a serious punch, and they are easier to aim than bows. Pistols, on the other hand, are as insane as you would expect new technology in the 1400s would be. They're essentially mini cannons. You load the paper, the gunpowder, and the bullet, you light the fuse, hold it out, and hope you hit something. If you do, they're dead, but if you don't, well, you can guess what happens.
You'll pay for the kick!
The game is gorgeous and there's no other way to put it. The lighting is phenomenal, nighttime is truly pitch black, and walking around a dark castle or town with a torch in your hand is just so atmospheric. But the game shines in the daytime, or the times in between. Watching a sunset or sunrise is something to behold. And I'd like to point out how dense everything is. Cities are littered with people, carts and stalls, and there is something simply cool about walking around Kuttenberg, which is the game's largest city. Outside the towns is where the game's at its best. I mean, just look at some of these views. Galloping around with the sun shining through these lush fields is amazing, and I lost hours in this simply walking around taking in the scenes. And the best thing is, it's not all flash and no substance. The world is truly reactive. On a basic level, NPCs react to your appearance. If you're covered in blood and muck and smell like shit, they'll make note of it, and it'll affect your speech stats. If you approach somebody with a weapon drawn, they'll understandably become hostile towards you. But it goes as far as NPCs refusing to speak to you because you affect them over in a side quest or something like that. At one point, the local butcher and his wife were involved in a quest. My speech check didn't go to plan, and I ended up getting the butcher killed. The quest was over at that point, and I don't think I could have got a reward, and usually that would have been that. But to test it out, I went back to the butcher's house, and the butcher's wife was inconsolable outside her house, and she wouldn't talk to me. And it's all them little details that make you feel alive. At one point, I woke an NPC up to talk to them, and they were in their pajamas, and I won't be able to show you due to it being a spoiler, but I asked them to follow me, and they did. But first, they woke up, walked over to their chest, changed into their normal clothes, and then followed me. I could go on and on about how these little towns feel alive, not just by how they look and how the townspeople function, but they also have little stories built into them from side quests, which I will get into later. The stories, characters and writing are hands down the most improved part of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. The writing in the first game wasn't exactly bad, but it didn't stand out otherwise. There was a couple of heartfelt moments, there was some decently well written comedy, and that's about it. The rest of it is all just sort of middle ground. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 starts a few days after the first game, and Henry is now Lord Capon's personal bodyguard. And that's where I want to start. Henry and Hans had only a few moments together in the first game, but by the end they were best friends, and to me, it kind of felt a bit forced. All in all, you spend like a few quests with one another and that's it. But they start strong here with the two going back and forth with one another, and you can see that they truly are friends, way more than how it was conveyed in the first game.
What's that you keep yelling, Sir Hans?
Good gracious, Henry, you don't mean to tell me you don't know Latin?
My apologies, Your Grace. Unfortunately, I was too busy shoveling shit and picking turnips to find time for studying Latin.
We shall have to rectify that. I can't have an ignoramus for a personal bodyguard.
And that is definitely the most important relationship in the game. One of the driving factors behind this is the tech. Facial animations are top tier, some of the best I've seen in a game like this. I mean, something like Cyberpunk is maybe the only one I can think of that is better, and you can see that they put a lot more time and budget into the acting side of it. There's a genuine rapport between Henry and Hans, and they've leaned into it with the marketing, and it seems like the actors have a proper friendship and it shows on screen. Where the first game is all about Henry, this is about Henry and his relationships with other people around him. Shit hits the fan very quickly and Henry and Hans are relegated to nothing. You lose all your gear and you wind up in a random town in the back arse of nowhere, and while Henry and Hans are good mates, Hans is still a lord and he has no problem letting you know that. The relationship has this interesting dynamic. One moment they're speaking like brothers as if they're equals, and then the next Hans is refusing to do work that is beneath him and forcing Henry to do it. And through everything that happens in the story, which I won't spoil, there is a true brothership built between the two. I like the concept of Hans in the first game, and if I just turn a blind eye, I could buy into the relationship, but now they actually show it to you. They don't just expect you to buy into it. And I can see them grow closer as you go out on a limb to save Hans for God knows how many times. Or how they slag each other with stories of their past and embarrass each other in front of people. I have a brother and a cousin that I would consider a brother, and I can tell you that the dialogue is authentic. Yes, it has a medieval slant to it, but the way they throw digs at each other is the same way I would with my brother or my cousin. The supporting cast is significantly stronger, and I'm sorry that I can't really go into more specifics about it, but there is almost like a Lord of the Rings or original Star Wars trilogy quality to the dynamics. One character is the not so serious drunk comic relief. The other is the reluctant leader, almost like Aragorn or something. There are even female characters like Leia or Eowyn that play massive parts in the story, and I was really reminded of the likes of Lord of the Rings or something like that in the cinematic moments. I mean, there are high scenes, massive battles, unexpected betrayals and deaths, and they're all backed up by some serious cinematic chops. The rush of heavy music as a giant fight is going off, or the slow, low horn of a character's death scene. I couldn't wait for the bigger moments because of the production values. I think the most staggering thing about it is the fact that they can't rely on the tropes that other fantasy games and movies can. Like, they can't wow you with crazy particle effects from a magical spell, or scare you with a giant troll or dragon or anything like that. They have to focus on the real. They focus on the imperfect characters, a lot of which are scumbags. It focuses in on the horrors that all of this warring brings, like walking through a burned village or seeing scores of bodies littered across a battlefield. And when the game wanted me to feel things, holy shit did I feel them. I had goosebumps and was nearly brought to tears when all was said and done. And on this channel I do like to bring context in from other games to sort of bolster my opinions, and if we take Starfield for example, I enjoyed the main story in that game, but I did have to buy into it a certain amount. I just have to accept that things look the way they look, or characters move the way they move. But here, these cutscenes showed me everything I needed in exquisite detail, and they're some of the best I have ever seen in this genre. The quest design is impeccable, and I want to start with what I call the location quests. At certain points in the story, you will be trapped in certain places for one reason or another. And these parts are like mini immersive sim moments, and I just loved them. I'm going to keep it as vague as possible, but you could be given a task like break somebody out of a prison or just get out of this place yourself. And you have loads of different ways to approach it. You can help out people in the fortress to get on their good side. You can lockpick a chest to get a key. You can stealth past some guards and knock them out. These places are like little sandboxes, and they're the standout sections of the game for me. It's where the whole play the way you want is at its full force. There was one where I had to sneak up to the tower in a castle, and you have to go up and then come back down. So on your way up, you're kind of thinking, oh, will I lockpick that door to make it easier? Will I maybe take out that guard? Maybe my skill isn't high enough to take him out, so I might just sneak past him. But if I knock him out and then hide him and maybe kill him, I'll be able to get back up quicker. And you just have all these little things going off in your head. And for any RPG fan that wants to be able to use their speech skill to get past something, or use their stealth skill to break into something, it is perfect. Every quest has choices and consequences. And when in the open world, you know what to expect. This villager is having troubles with this person, or a group of bandits is off in the distance annoying some people, or maybe this person stole something, so go help them. And what I love about these is that they will take you all over the place. Early on, there was a quest about some thunderstone that a villager thinks will help her sick husband, and she says somebody in the town has it. And usually I would expect to go to that person, do something small for them, and then get the stone. But no, I went on a wild goose chase that took me from town to town, doing all sorts of stuff like getting into a fist fighting ring just to get the stone. And then at the end, I still had a choice of who to give it to, and it introduced me to a character who was being bullied by the townspeople, and I had the option to help him out and train him to stand up for himself in a fight. And you do so many of these little stories in these towns, and you learn that, oh, the butcher hates the huntsman because he did this to him, or you go on a treasure hunt to find axe from a water goblin, or investigate the disappearance of random townspeople in an abandoned mineshaft that people are convinced that the devil lives in. And they're just these all-encompassing quests that show you the funny side of medieval life, they show you the bleak side of living in small medieval towns, and then once you get into the big cities, things just get crazier and crazier. And to be honest, out of everything I've spoken about so far in this video, Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of them games that I can understand if you don't want to go wash your clothes and make yourself presentable so that people would talk to you properly, or you don't want to almost start from ground zero to build yourself up to be able to properly fight or properly coerce people, or, you know, this, that, or the other. The thing about Kingdom Come Deliverance is that where games like Skyrim or Oblivion almost give you like a power fantasy of you are this really strong warrior, and you almost get that straight away because you can use magic and bows and swords and all this sort of stuff. Kingdom Come Deliverance, while this one certainly gives you that fantasy a bit more because you are a bit stronger, you do have better armor as you go along, you are fighting in larger battles, you do feel a bit more competent, a bit more like a warrior than certainly you feel in the first game, but it doesn't give it to you easy. And to be honest, I like that friction because it makes me feel like I've actually earned everything that I've done in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now I do have to touch on the save system because it's back in its full, glory. I don't know, that's not really a word I would use, but it's back. So in this game, you save by sleeping, drinking a drink called Savior Snaps, which is fairly expensive at the start of the game. You can also craft it, or you can save and exit. Now, I don't like this system. I understand what they're trying to do. They don't want you to save scum, but people will always find a way to save scum. If you want to save scum, save scum. If you don't, then don't. But here, they kind of straddle the line where they didn't want you to be able to save scum, but you can actually save scum because you can just save and quit before a big decision and then just load back in, and if you didn't like the choice or you didn't like the outcome, just reload that save and do it all over again. And the problem is that it actually takes fairly long to load back into the game. The load times are pretty long, but that also means that you never really have to load ever again, so I understand it. But I don't understand why you can't just save like a normal game, because you basically can, just with one extra step. The game does autosave at big moments in different quests, but sometimes you can kind of get fecked over where the game won't save for 10 or 15 minutes, or you won't get a chance to sleep in a bed, and then you die and have to redo everything you just did. And while I do think this game is largely bug-free from my experience, there's the sort of minor things like random AI pathing messing up, or the funny visual glitches where, I don't know, somebody might walk through a door, or, you know, little things like that. I didn't have any major bugs, but there were a couple of instances where a quest bugged or a character got stuck, and because the game didn't save, I had to reload and redo the section over again, and it wasn't my fault, which is the annoying part. If I die in combat because I'm bad and have to reload a previous save, then I'm kind of okay with that, but I still would prefer a normal save system. But if I have to do it because I got stuck or an NPC didn't follow me, then, you know, it's just frustrating and it could be completely fixed. Now, to answer the question for all of you out there, can you just jump into this instead of playing the first game? So there are 3 things I want to talk about here. First, the game does a decent job of catching you up, and if you think the older, clunkier gameplay of Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 won't be for you, then I say, why not? Just jump in here, but beware, this game isn't for everyone. Second, for the people who played Kingdom Come Deliverance but didn't like it, I don't think the sequel is much different. It still tries to get in your way. It won't hand everything to you. Some of the quest rewards are not very rewarding. You will do certain things and you will actually just fail a quest, all this sort of stuff. So I think if you didn't like that, then This game doesn't do anything different, so it won't be for you. And the third, and this is a bit more obtuse, if you played Kingdom Come Deliverance and kind of enjoyed what it was going for, but maybe fell off because you thought it was maybe just ever so slightly too slow, or just needed some refinements in the systems to make everything feel better and smoother. It does give you those improvements in every single system that just make it feel a tiny bit better to play, while also not taking away from the reason why we all love Kingdom Come Deliverance. So I think it might be for you. That is an extremely obtuse, very specific kind of person, but that is for the very small amount of people in that boat that would be watching this video. I'm sitting here thinking, like, what is my main takeaway from this playthrough? And there are so many positives, how all the systems are more refined, how they just sort of feel better, the game feels better to play. It still has that friction, it still has that, it doesn't want to give you things easy and you really have to earn everything, but how you actually get that stuff just feels ever so slightly better than the original. It's just more refined. I can talk about how good the game looks, how it runs absolutely near flawlessly on the PS5. I only have a base PS5. In performance mode, it runs at almost a locked 60 FPS. It's fantastic. I can talk about all of these little details that make this game into just an amazing experience that I won't forget for a long time. But ultimately, my main takeaway from this playthrough is that the feeling of this adventure is something I think only the likes of Oblivion and Skyrim have really given me in my lifetime. Nowadays, while I still love them games, there are so many problems with loads of different things. You become overpowered too quickly. I don't know, the choice consequence isn't amazing. There's just loads of little details that I can pick out. But what I remember of playing Oblivion or Skyrim is just getting lost in an open world RPG, and that is exactly what happened to me in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I wish I could have put more time into this, and I certainly will once this review is all said and done, because simply loading in, hopping on your horse, going to a town, talking to some random NPCs, maybe taking out a bandit camp, going to Kuttenberg, walking around, taking in the sights of the city, experiencing this amazing journey through Henry and this amazing world is unrivaled. And again, it has captured that feeling that Oblivion and Skyrim evoked in me all them years back. It truly is a great sequel. See, I did a 2025 review of Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, and a lot of my points were about how certain systems felt a bit clunky or not fully realised, and that I had to suspend my disbelief a bit to buy into the systems. And the same here happens too. NPC's pathing will be a bit off sometimes. There are some buggy moments where clothes won't load in, or soldiers during a fight will stand still. But overall, I didn't have to suspend it near as much as the first game because of all the improvements they made to absolutely everything in the game. The voice acting makes the characters more believable. The motion and facial capture tech are almost unrivaled in the first-person RPG space. The impactful story moments hit harder due to better acting and writing, and the comedy is even funnier. This game is genuinely hilarious. And overall, it's one of the best sequels I have ever played. There are rumblings of this being a trilogy, and I hope to God that is true. If this is their Witcher 3 moment, then God only knows what they could achieve with another game. So if you've enjoyed the video and made it this far, please type Audentis Fortuna Juvat in the comments. Figure out how to spell that. It's a phrase in the game, because I've seen it a couple of times. I'm still not sure if I can spell it. If you've enjoyed it, then please subscribe, leave a like. If you haven't, I don't know, leave some hateful comment in the section below. I don't know. Join the channel members if you really want to support. All this getting, early games and all that is only possible because people support the channel. They watch it, they like the videos, they share them around, all this sort of stuff. So for everybody to watch this, thank you very much. Subscribe, of course, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.